Hey, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Woodpreneur podcast. This is your host, Steve, and today's guest is Mark Dubac from Windwood Sawmills. Do you go by Windwood Sawmills or just Windwood LLC? How do you go?
Oh, Windwood LLC is good, I suppose.
Awesome. So, Mark, why don't you tell everybody about how you got started and your background?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I anticipated that question, Steve. I've listened to the podcast. So I guess around 8 or 9 years ago. I should start with that. I play in the Oregon Symphony. Like, that's my full-time job. And during the summertime, we don't have work. So we have work for 9 months out of the year, basically. And that summertime, generally, my musician colleagues and I would travel around the country and play in different music festivals. A lot of them really good, and some pay real well too. But I had young children at the time, and it was just kind of a pain to haul screaming children across the country for sometimes good pay and sometimes not. So I kind of got into just doing handyman work for neighbors. Actually, I just wanted to be able to stay at home and work. And through that process, I think I just got enamored with woodwork generally. I was doing other stuff too, but that really was more fun for me. And at the time, I also stumbled on another podcast, actually, the Wood Whisperer podcast. And then I kind of fell in love with the world of hardwoods. And he introduced that so clearly. And I just did a swan dive into woodwork stuff, and I set up a home shop in the garage. As to how I, made that switch to, hey, let's, mill logs
In an urban area.
Right, exactly. As to how that happened, my best guess is, so I'm already, into hardwoods, and it was kind of a new thing for me. I didn't really know that there was much out there besides the construction lumber at Home Depot or whatever. I was used to that. A neighbor just across the street removed, I don't know, it's a pretty big cherry tree. And I'd already been, setting up the shop, and I was like, wait a minute. So what's going to happen with that cherry tree? And it's free firewood, I was like, well, I like cherry, but why can't we just use that? It's right there. And so it's a big log, and it's across the street from me. So I proceeded to take like a 3 or 4 foot section of it and shove it into the back of my Prius and drive it back to my house. It would have been a lot easier on a hand truck, but I didn't know anything about material handling at that point. So that kind of, and then I had the log, like, what am I going to, how do I deal with this? How do I took a Sawzall to it, and tried getting some, it is pretty nuts, but I guess I had a will, to try. So that's kind of how that started, basically, Steve.
That's really cool. And I think, aside from, there are, you're not just like just a sawyer, you're a chainsaw mill sawyer, right? Like you're an Alaskan mill, like, to the backyard. And you live in Portland? Is that where you live?
Yes, I live in Southeast Portland. Yep.
Okay. And so tell us about that journey, about how you started milling for other people. Like,
right.
Cause that's like a big jump, right? Like you get your neighbor's cherry log.
Right.
And then like, why that?
Yeah.
And then what, and then the next step. Yeah.
Okay. I can answer that. Yeah. So, what happened was like, okay, how do I deal with this, this heavy log that I can't get into and get to the wood? So basically I had no chainsaw experience. I had worked with some power tools, but chainsaws, those scared me. I was like, I don't want to, I need someone to show me what to do. Right.
And you need your fingers.
That's the thing. Right. I bought a saw stop table saw right away, but yeah, you don't get that in chainsaw stop, or whatever. So I kind of asked around, and I found someone who's crazier than me to, basically what I did was I found someone with a few big saws, and I bought a small mill. Even though I wanted to pay them to use, so I just bought like the small log mill and put that on their saw. And I was like, look, I've watched all these videos, so here's how you do it. But you use the saw at first, so that was kind of how that started. And we were just milling things that were nearby. And he actually had a trailer and a winch that was, okay. So that kind of started that process of trying, like seeing what we could actually pick up, and then we used his saw, my small log mill, and we milled some things. It was, just kind of nuts, but it worked. And then so eventually I did choose to buy a saw. I got like a 461 or 460 used. It lasted about 6 months before I burnt it out, milling things that was too big for it, with my small log mill. And his name is Kevin. He still hauled for me. So I had the Prius, right? Like I don't have a truck. I don't have any of that stuff. So I'm having someone else do the majority of the material handling. And I'm milling stuff because it's like, wait, so Gobi Walnut left all these great walnut logs because they took the huge, 48-inch, whatever. Like, so Kevin and me would go hand truck out these, I don't know, in some cases 10 or 11 foot sections of 12-inch to 18-inch diameter logs. I was like, heck yeah, I need that. That's kind of how that started. I don't know. You asked about milling for others. That's only been in the last, I guess, 2 years, 3 years or so.
Okay. How long have you been at this? How many years?
So yeah, about the same amount of time. So now that I think about it, so more like, so there was another guy who did some milling for me too, and that was so about 3.5 years right now.
Okay.
Total.
So you start. I mean, and I also, I saw that you do some woodwork. You do some charcuterie boards. You started making some tables and stuff. So you got the mill. You started getting other people to mill for you, and then what were you doing with the lumber? Were you selling them on Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace? Like, how are you selling them?
Right. Actually, one of the other people that I remember now, 3.5 or so years ago, he chainsaw milled some stuff that Kevin and me got out of someone's yard. And he's like, man, this is great stuff. Like, you should share it on Instagram. I was like, I don't have an Instagram page. So I started that, and I started sharing stuff. And actually that made a lot of connections. I didn't really sell much on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist at the time. A lot of it was still wet, so it was just air drying. I wasn't wanting to sell green lumber, I guess. I mean, I could have, but I mean, at first I just wanted to use it, because I had been so into woodwork, and I wanted to, use some of it. I used some to build my daughter a little bed. I think it was just the headboard, but still, it's like, I want to use some of that stuff too. I made some benches that weren't fully dry, and then one of them twisted. So, so I kind of started learning, some of that stuff right then and there, So,
and it also seemed too that you developed. I mean, you kind of know all of the woodworkers and the other sawyers in your community too. So you've been networking, or you have networked a lot, right? Because a lot of people, like Epilogue you've worked with, and Maverick, and, like a bunch of others. Talk about how you've networked and to supplement your business.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I almost didn't even think of it like that, but you're absolutely right. Like, and I think through a positive of social media would be that, being able to see what a few others are up to, and engaging with them, and not for the sole purpose of what can I get out of something, but just engaging because it's interesting. I want to see, whatever Nick with Maverick Sawmill's doing. I want to see what Dave with Epilogue is doing, and I've listened to both of their podcasts with you, and I want to see what others are doing. And I think that aspect of engaging with others that are nice people, then yeah, why not? And as a result, yeah, I've hauled logs to Dave with Epilogue to mill on the bandsaw mill. Now that I have the trailer, ones that are, it's just so efficient to do that. And rather than just chainsaw mill 3 or 4 of them in a day, forget it. And then with Maverick too, I had him flatten some things that were too wide for one thing. And then he needed an English walnut cookie and I had one. And yeah, I think that stuff's really great, actually.
That's cool. And so tell us, so I think I saw online, obviously, with you being a professional musician in the symphony and with COVID and lockdown, that you weren't able to do your career.
Right. I mean, so the symphony, right, we stopped, in March of 2020. We recently started up September of this year, but to say, I definitely took the business quote unquote full time. We were eligible for some unemployment. We got some what do you call it, PPP loan assistance. So to say it was fully full time is not really. That's not really true. Additionally, we were able to keep our insurance throughout the whole thing. So, I mean, yeah, not quite, but I did take it full time in that any milling job that was available, I just said yes because I had time and it was, I mean, frankly, just such not easy money, but like simple available work. Yeah. For a plenty high rate because there's hardly anyone else doing mobile milling with a wide cut. And
how big is the bar that you have?
I use a 60-inch bar. It's a Cannon bar, and with that you get around 54 inches wide milling width. I mean that
seems standard for where you are in the country, right?
I mean. And what's funny, Steve, is I've been maxed out plenty of times on jobs, with the white oaks or whatever. Yeah. I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to trim it, It's like, yeah. Plus, if you're milling with a chainsaw on someone's yard, you're not going to be flipping it over unless they have equipment, and so. But that's why I'm there generally is they don't have equipment, like they can't get it out of. I was just milling on the top of a hill yesterday, Steve. Like it's just, I just looked up the hill and I was like, well, that's an Alaskan mill situation right there. Good job hiring me. Like that's what it's for,
Why'd you pick Granberg?
When?
Why did you pick Granberg?
Why? I mean, it's just kind of the one I saw. I guess I'd watched Matt Cremona use the Panther one. And at the time I was looking to buy, maybe it wasn't as readily available. I can't remember. He said it was heavier. I listened to him. I listened to Cremona.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just cool. The Granberg had a lot of options. And I think that just seemed to make sense at the time. Oh, you know why also, Steve, is because the guy who milled for me once, this was like February. Anyway, he had a small log mill, which Granberg says you're supposed to use a 20-inch bar or less, right? He used the 28. And all that does is it sticks out a little further beyond that piece of plexiglass. So you actually get 26 inches milling width with that. You could use a 24. It probably wouldn't be as, what do you call it? Bendy, but that's what I did at first. So just, it's probably not kosher just for any, just like for people listening.
Or aesthetically, right? Like it doesn't, it looks a little.
It looks odd, but you know what? It didn't produce really poor cuts. I think if you went longer than that, it'd be kind of dumb. It would get dumber and dumber as you got longer, because it only clamps on one side of the bar.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was kind of why I was like, geez, that thing is, $150.
Good value, right?
I know a guy with a saw. He has a trailer. Why not buy the $150 mill? If it doesn't work out, I waste $150.
What when did like being a sawyer, when did it become real to you?
I don't know if there's like a moment, but what I will say is, with each kind of bigger investment, whether it was buying the 880 or the trailer, the truck, like any of those big investments made it more real. So it wasn't a moment. Those are all kind of spread out. But they each increased. And then recently also getting a space for dry storage. I rent just a half, like another woodworker, half garage for slab dry storage. So that allows me to, after I get the thing out of my backyard, it doesn't come back. It goes to a place where it's only a showroom. It's only a place for people to look. So each one of those steps has made it more real. And now the orchestra started back up, and I'm like, okay, do I have time for this?
Yeah. Yeah. What, so beyond the orchestra, it's like nights and weekends now?
Kind of. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, there's some weeks where we're particularly busy at orchestra, but there's also some where we're not as busy. I do have work this week, but it's not a particularly demanding week for me. We just did a show with Nas the rapper, and
That's awesome.
we don't have to work too hard for that. He does most of the show. We play some cool things, but it's not as demanding as other shows. So my point is, I mean, on a night like that, I'm not going to chainsaw mill for 6 hours and then go play an orchestra concert. Maybe 2 days before. Something like that.
That's cool.
But
that's cool.
I'm just kind of putting it in between. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say is that you are definitely the only person on our podcast that's ever been to Juilliard. So there's a first. So there's always time. There's always time. Exactly. What don't people? I guess if somebody's looking to get into the sawmill business, what do they need to know about the positives of running a chainsaw mill kind of operation?
Sure. Yeah, I can do some positives. For me, in my location, I basically can have, at this point, like first right of refusal on almost any job. And there's very few people doing chainsaw milling for hire. And Steve, there's like 12, 13 full-time sawmills around me. Like there's a lot. Big, small, but still full-time, and part-time ones too. None of them do this. It's not worth their time because they have, a yard full of logs and they got to get through them, and it's more worth their time to do that. Whereas I don't, so that's in one way, that's a positive because there's still demand. I'm like, I have too much too much work, and I can turn it down and just charge a rate that's high because like no one else is doing it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me, which I didn't anticipate at all, going in, because there's sort of this, I find a conventional wisdom that everybody has a chainsaw mill, everyone's got an Alaskan mill. No, they don't. Or even if they do, they don't have either a really big one. Like, you need a big saw. That's the thing. That's the big expense. And but that's a positive, actually. For like, another positive is it's the cheapest way to mill wood. Like, it is so cheap. You still need to move the darn things around. Like, you have to deal with logs and heavy things, but it goes anywhere, and you can mill something in a parking strip or in a backyard or in a, you still have to deal with heavy slabs and getting them somewhere. Sure. So that's a positive. And then, the cut width, positive. Yeah. That's good too. If you have the big, like an 880 or 60, whatever it is, or the Husqvarna equivalents.
Yeah.
That's a positive. So
that's cool. And what about the downsides? Like, even for you, when you think about like where you want to take the business, is it kind of, are you going to stay here like with this, or do you see yourself like scaling up, or just kind of like?
Great question. Yeah, I'm not sure. Because right now, that's the thing. Like, I listened to your podcasts, and there was a theme on the 3 or 4 I listened to. It's like, well, I quit my job and going into going full force. And I'm like, I like my job. That's the thing. And the sawmill stuff is cool too. However, the orchestra job it's a great gig. And so that's a good question. Where am I taking it? I don't know. Right now, at least, I don't know. Sure. The negatives, plenty of people know, but I'll bring up a few. It's slow. Every other way of milling is way faster and more efficient. You get on a swing blade mill, you get a bandsaw mill. Oh man!
But your videos make it look like it's so fast. I don't know.
I gotta stop that. I know. Well, because who's gonna watch a 10-minute cut? I could do that. I could do an IGTV cut. It'd be fun. Have people go like, swipe ahead. I would. It's slow, and there's ways to make it better with a winch of some sort. You can buy one or make one, and you can use. I like using hyperskip chain, which they use on Lucas mills and other swing blade mills. But I also like hauling logs to a bandsaw mill as well, because. And sometimes I get the but then you don't get, the whatever 54 inches wide. You don't get as wide a cut unless you have like one of those Pomona clones or the Woodmiser 1000. I honestly feel like those slabs, there is some market for that, not much, and they rarely stay flat.
Yeah.
And it's a pain in the butt, and they take forever to dry. I don't see the point. I'll do it for someone else at this point. That's me, but maybe I'll make some enemies by saying all this. I think seeing someone with a bandsaw mill with hydraulics and things that
it's a game changer.
I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah.
It only cuts 36 inches wide. Yeah. Okay, fine. If someone really needs 54,
you don't have to roll it. You literally don't have to roll it. You don't have to yeah. You roll it onto the edge, and then it lifts up, and then
that too. Yep. But I've learned just watching, again, networking, like you said, watching Epilogue, watching Nick, watching other Berlin Grain locally as well. It's a snowball of expenses that that's why I'm kind of digging in my feet, is because it's a snowball of expenses and time. And I like my job. I like my orchestra job.
For sure.
So I wouldn't be surprised to stay where I am right now, you know?
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything, there's obviously nothing wrong with it. Like, I mean, actually, you know who else? I had Blacktail Studio one time.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, yeah, I got my dream job. I think he was like a pilot, he had his dream job. And then on the side, he was doing woodworking.
Right. Well,
and then eventually he quit his dream job.
Funny.
But it's, there are lots of people that you don't have to quit your day job.
Right.
Like I love my job. I love working with Isaac. And then, earlier this year, I did a side hustle called Purpose Wood Co. And I was like, yeah, I wouldn't want to do that full time, but it's a good side gig, side hustle, make some money. Keeps me closer to the product. So it was fun. Cool. So this is the part of the podcast where I give you any marketing or business advice. So is there anything that you need help with, or something that you need to think through, or sort of challenge that you'd like some advice on?
Yeah. So I'd say easily the thing I think that's getting most in my way is just being organized enough to know either just what I have, where it is, being able to get to it. I'm talking mostly about dry material. That I've learned how to, put in the 6/4 in that stack, put in the 8/4 in that stack, just stuff like that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yep.
So wait, is there a particular challenge or question that you have, or something that you need help with?
Yeah. I mean, I guess anything with regards to that, whether it's how to, either how to, maybe not just how to physically get to it, but yeah, I guess it would fall under inventorying, right? That would be the...
Sure. Well, there's a couple things. Like one is, so I'm going to kind of dig a little bit sort of deeper, is that like, one is because you have like a day job, I think even whether you had a day job or not, I think there are different ways that you can automate some of the things that you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for one is having a lot of your customers all in one location, right?
Yeah.
Like because you're communicating on DM, text, email, maybe even Facebook Messenger, right? Like you're communicating all these different locations. And it's like, what conversation, where, who, what do they want? Right.
Sure.
Like that is something that that you could probably automate. And so thinking of having like a system that allows you to have all those in one spot. The other thing too is because your time is pretty precious between, work and family and the orchestra stuff, to be able to have dedicated time that you can look out 1 to 2 weeks in advance. And so having a way for you to have your schedule set so that if you need to do a job, that your time is allocated. If you need to do a quote for somebody and somebody wants to talk to you, you're not going back and forth, so that, it's like, what time are you available? What time are you available? And then you could just shoot them a link and it says, hey, here's when I'm available. Right. And then they book it. And then, that sort of stuff. The other thing too is project management, right? Because you have multiple projects going on. Like, how do you keep your projects and all of your contacts and all of your people in place so that you can keep track of like where they are, because you're pretty much doing the same types of projects all the time, right? Just for different people. So how do you have a set system where you can almost like drag and drop where things are, where people are on your project timeline?
Yep.
that's probably another thing. And then also too, I mean, there's so many different ways that you can like automate. You can even automate like collecting deposits, collecting payments, that sort of stuff. So anyway, it basically, and then I guess inventory. Oh, and then the other thing too is like, because you have the same people that like, and you're growing too, right? Like people that want to buy wood products, like lumber and slab. So like, wouldn't it be great too if you just took a picture, right, of something that you just got, or it's fresh out the kiln or what have you, and you just sent a text message to everybody that's in your contact list at once, that says, hey, this is what's available. Click here to buy, right? And so like there's different ways to do it. And that's, so I guess long story short, you need like a CRM. You need a way to just kind of stay organized. Because then the other thing too is like, because I know as someone who has multiple hustles, like sometimes like you just need to put your brain to something else. Like you shut down the one part of your life and then you turn on the other part. But when you turn on the other part of your life, like meaning the woodworking, so when you're done with your at least for the day, you're done with the orchestra stuff, you need to turn to woodworking. It's literally all in one spot. You're like, okay, this is what I have to do right then and there. So
yeah.
But anyway, I can we can set up another time to talk. I could show you my CRM, and it just basically helps organize. Like, because literally when I first started Acres of Timber, and it was actually just called Sawmill Business like 5 years ago, I was like, oh my God. I was like, there's so many different ways to organize everything. Just like organize when people talk to you, organize how you communicate with them, organize what projects you have going on and where people are. Just like, So anyway, I could show you that. I can show you that next time we talk. But that's cool. I'm so glad that we got the chance to talk and have you on the podcast.
Definitely. Yeah, it's an honor.
Tell everybody how they can get in touch. Instagram.
Well, either through Instagram, Windwood LLC, or I have an email address also, windwoodmilling@gmail.com. I check that often. And I sell some slabs on Facebook Marketplace if you want to check them out and ask me if it's available. Cool. A few times, and I say, yes, it's available. And then they say, no. And then I say, yes. It's very fun.
That's cool. I just saw your post from November 6th, and you literally, so anybody that's listening, this is literally textbook how you make money. Is you said, I'm making 20 of these charcuterie boards for the holiday season. There'll be a few end grain cutting boards. These that range from this, and this.
Right.
Hit me up to buy. That's literally how you make money. You
Steve,
tell people what you have. I stole
that. I heard you say something like that in one of your story things. So that was in the back of my head. Like you're awesome. Like, here's what you need to do. Go to your personal Facebook and say, there was something I heard in there I used. That's why.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome.
Gosh, I watch your stories.
Thank you, man. I watch yours too. Dude, okay. You get access to some really big stuff.
Oh, you mean big logs?
Big logs. Yeah, right. Your logs are...
It's ridiculous out here. Man.
It is ridiculous. God.
I turned down a custom milling job of a silver maple that was too big for my mill. And, I don't know.
It's a rabbit hole, right? Like, you're like, wow. And after a while, you start getting your name out. Everybody starts calling you for logs, or you start sourcing for logs because you know that you can flip it, right?
Some of them,
if there's one other thing that I would probably do more of if I were you, is I would literally like flex your symphony music stuff more on here. Mm-hmm. Like some of the music that you're into, your music, like tell more stories about it. Because I feel like that is a big differentiator.
It's personal too, yeah.
And it connects you more with people, right?
Right.
But I mean, oh, and I forgot, you're like literally, you just need to do more memes. Your memes are hilarious.
I want to, Steve, but the problem is I don't want it to get divisive, right? Hey, that's not funny. I mean it. No, it's too late. Is that why you're laughing? It's too late.
Yeah.
No, I don't want them to become like those political memes where, it's like they don't tell the whole story. And I don't like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no, but your memes are like literally making fun of the wood industry. That's literally it.
Sometimes, yeah.
It's hilarious.
I'm conflicted, perhaps. Maybe that's what it is.
You're taking yourself too seriously, and you're not a serious person. So you're not a serious person. Just lean into
the memes. No, the
lean
memes,
into your music and lean into your humor. Period.
Okay, so
that's it.
I believe you.
Lean into your music. Lean into to music, memes, and get organized.
I need to get organized.
You're like, that's it. That's it. I mean, this is hilarious. Your memes are hilarious. Anyway, thanks so much. It was great to have you on the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks for checking out the latest episode of the Woodpreneur podcast. If you found value and love what you listened to, please subscribe, rate, and review so that more people can learn about our mission and vision. Lastly, join our community, the Woodpreneur Membership Community. It's a marketing and training program to help you market and build your wood business past 6 figures.